Hi, Jocelyn and Aaron. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to all of us in Asia. I am so excited to have the opportunity to learn directly from the both of you, especially also after consuming some of your courses online for myself and my marriage. So, welcome to the Who We Are podcast.
Thank you, Rachel, so much for having us. And hello, everyone listening.
We are so excited. Before we dive into some of the questions, maybe for those of us who may not be as familiar with you, could you both share a little bit about yourselves and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah. Well, we got to where we are today from going through our own growth journey. And we really were raised very differently when it comes to what we witnessed in marriage and in relationships. And so we came into our relationship with different patterns around communication, around how we handled conflict, around how we talked about feelings. And so although we really liked each other, we had to work through those differences and learn healthy tools and skills. And back at the time when we met, it really wasn't normal in a sense to be working on your relationship outside of either therapy or the church setting. And so as we grew and worked on things ourselves, we said, how do we create an environment and have it feel empowering and inviting to work on these things as opposed to only in those two settings I previously mentioned. So we've been doing this almost a decade now, teaching workshops and writing books and, really growing our online community and resources. And we just continue to be more and more passionate about this work.
For me personally, I think the gift that both of you have is that you guys are amazing teachers. There are so many maybe types of relationship advices that are out there. But I think what I really love and can really resonate, and I'm sure, looking at the followers growth of your social media channel too, like a lot of us can really resonate because you guys really produce such relatable content. And in your work, with couples, what are some of the common patterns or challenges you often observe, and how do you help couples overcome them?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Do you want to start first?
It's not like we're making a overgeneralization, but would say that the upsets or the patterns that a male or female fall into in a relationship do have some commonalities, right? So I wouldn't want to just generalize like, oh, for all people. I would say, and we've talked a lot about like men seem to have the complaint that their female partners are overly criticizing them. They continue to check in on them. That then feels like it's like you doubt me, you don't trust me. And yet what we also notice is that there's a pattern of not being as assertive as we could be. So I could speak for myself, right? I could get upset at Jocelyn that she continues to like check in on me. Hey, did you follow through on this? Did you do that? And I'm like, stop criticizing me. Get off my back. Don't you trust me? And then ultimately I have to look at myself and say, have I been assertive about what it is that I'm really wanting or needing? And if I gave my word to something, then it's just up to me to take accountability that, you know what, I said I was going to follow through on that and I didn't. And we do see that it's a more common thing for men that if Jocelyn goes to hold me to account to something I said, I could say, well, I know I didn't, but you didn't do this. And it's like, well, wait a second. We just need to deal with this more objectively. If I gave my word to something, I just need to own up and take responsibility that, you know what, I said I would do that and I didn't. That has an impact on you, and just take that responsibility for that. So that's definitely one that we see for men. And when I say men, I've certainly fallen into that as well.
If I could just add in addition to that, because there's a lot and it varies per personality, how long they've been together and things like that. But what we really find if we boiled it down is they don't course correct fast enough. And what I mean by that course correcting is we're not going to always be on the path to happiness, bliss, being perfectly connected, communicating well, especially the longer you're together. And if you have kids together and you encounter stressors. So this path isn't just this straight path, right? We're going to aim to be on track together, but we're just going to deviate a little bit. We're going to feel disconnected for a few days. We're going to find ourselves bickering more. And why is that? And we're going to have conflicts occur. So we're going to have these deviations from the path, but we need to course correct fast. We need to realize, oh, we've been off. We're not communicating that well. We've been more short with each other. Let's talk about why. Let's course correct. So we're big on things like having a family meeting, check-in, maintaining your love account. We can go a lot more into those principles, but I think that course correcting is so important.
Yeah. And how do you also, Aaron, like you shared earlier, equip the couples with practical tools or skills to be able to, in that moment, in that heated moment, to be able to objectively say to themselves, okay, I'm not going to take this personally. And like what you shared earlier, how do we do that?
I think to set the appropriate expectation, if we think about a situation that causes a disturbance or an upset, I think a lot of times in the coaching or marriage space, we think that we have to completely handle that moment well. And that is a big thing when people talk about emotional triggers. Like, oh, well, I'm not going to get emotionally triggered anymore. Okay, so what? So you're going to now, from this conversation, take what your partner had been saying as feeling unloved, and now you're expecting that the next time they say that phrase, you're going to force yourself to not feel unloved. Like, no, there's going to be a lot of things that could be involved from your past, things that were unrepaired, attachment styles, traumas. So it's not the right expectation to say you aren't going to feel the same emotion, but what we can do is shorten the amount of time that you come back, or shorten the amount of time in which you execute or implement a tool. So whether it is around repair or de-escalating conflicts, or even like we were just saying, taking accountability, taking ownership, if it's that simple, are we saying that the next time it happens, you in that moment do any of those things? No. But if, let's say it took you like 2 hours to come back together, well, our goal is going to be that within an hour, you think of the tool, you relate to the root cause for yourself, and maybe you come back in an hour. And then once you get better at that, now maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's 15 minutes. So it's kind of like what Jocelyn was saying, like course correcting quickly from a general perspective, but more so even in the moments like getting triggered, we just want you to shorten the time in which you have the self-awareness or you implement the skill.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that is what that I find so relatable because, I think hearing from both of you that, even shortening the time that we respond or even course correct in itself is already a win that we should celebrate. Considering the idea that love is not enough, what do you believe are some of the essential skills and qualities that couples need to cultivate a strong relationship?
Oh, we just led our couples workshop on Sunday. And so we said the exact phrase on Sunday, actually, about love not being enough, which we've all heard something like that before. That's becoming more common knowledge now, that we can't just bank, especially on love seeming the same way. One thing we like to really normalize in our content is that we go through different seasons and stages of a marriage. So even when we get together and we go through that exciting time of falling in love, even that honeymoon stage, that's an exciting, fun stage. And it naturally changes. That is part of becoming more comfortable together, becoming just more familiar with each other and building a life together. And so to go back to your question, having that perspective that it's not going to always feel the same, but how do we make sure that we are showing our love through action? And so I would just break that down for you into a few skills. Number one, realizing what the love account is. So the love account is an incredible way to see how love is shown through action. So like a bank account, the love account is the sum of your deposits to your withdrawals. And so the deposits, sure, love languages are a part of it. A lot of people think of that. So of course, including the quality time, the acts of service, etc. But it's in the small moments. You're walking by them in the kitchen, and instead of just not noticing them, graze their back. It's getting something that they love at the grocery store. It's saying something nice before bedtime. It's starting a good conversation with them, showing you're engaged. So a lot more people are focused on that because of books like The Love Languages. But here's what people forget. We can make withdrawals and either not realize it, or they start to be more withdrawals than deposits. So some withdrawals can be being short with them, saying something a little bit harsher, even somewhat being passive aggressive or directly saying something that is a criticism or negative to them. Getting into an argument and not repairing is a huge withdrawal. So what happens to couples, even the ones that work really hard and they want to be great, is they don't realize that they're making so many more withdrawals than they are deposits. And the thing is, the lower your account gets, the less tolerant you are of each other, the less grace, that it starts to build this momentum towards more conflict and feeling disconnected. So that's one tool and skill and that really is helpful to keep in mind, because that's occurring on a daily basis. Repair, if you would want to go into that, that's a key skill.
Yeah. You're going to have to repair being in a relationship, because you're going to you're going to cause impact on one another. You're going to cause some hurt. You're going to cause some pain. And it's not that people set out to do that, but you're different people with different sets of personality traits, with different preferences, with different attachment styles, with different upbringings and traumas. And so, you're just going to live together and have this many interactions. You're just bound to, if you want to put it simply, like step on each other's toes, right? So what are your options? To not address it and not acknowledge it, well, that's just going to build up into bitterness and resentment, or you're going to have to face it. And without a tool, it'll just be kind of like a ping pong back and forth where you did this. Well, I only did this because you did that. So you're really only left with the option of, we have to repair. And so, we came up with a 5R process, 5 steps to actually go through that process and to not only find a solution, but to bring emotional repair to the event that happened. So our short formula, we would also say, is repair plus a solution equals resolution. Wow. Where, again, I'll speak to some of the men. Men think that solution equals resolution. So we're like, oh, here's the fix, let's do this. But no, you need the repair side. You need the acknowledgement of the impact. You need to acknowledge that, hey, I took this action and it wasn't intentional, but I get how that negatively impacted you. And I can simply listen to understand and take some ownership of that. Then with that understanding, with that repair happening, then it's like, how do we find a win-win solution or a set of actions to take? Sometimes we call that an agreement. And then from there, it's just, we need to follow through on that agreement. You could also be having good repair conversations, but if you're not clear about the action that needs to change, or you don't have that same accountability to follow through and make the change, then you're going to find yourself in the conversation again later. And one person will be upset. We already had this conversation. We already repaired this. Well, yeah, we talked about the emotion, but nothing has changed in the behavior. And so now you feel like you're back in the past again.
Yeah, and I think, repair is such an important skill that no one really talks about or teaches much about, which is also so tightly linked to communication, what you say. And communication is often cited as a cornerstone of healthy marriages or relationships. What are some of the effective communication techniques that we can start implementing today to start improving our relationship dynamics?
Because you're exactly right. Communication we see as a way to prevent unnecessary conflicts, not avoid, because there is a difference. And that's even a part of communication. Some people avoid uncomfortable conversations, which actually, going right into it, great communicators get more comfortable being uncomfortable. That doesn't mean anything's wrong. It means you're having a real conversation. It means you're putting your hearts on the line. It means you're being vulnerable. You're sharing your feelings and what you need in the relationship. And I can't tell you how many couples we talk to who have merged finances, had children, completely combined their lives, yet they're nervous to bring up an important topic, whether that be about their needs or something that they've been feeling a little bit upset about in the relationship, or a topic that they know is triggering. And so here's, as the listeners, you need to get good at both roles, being the speaker and being the listener. Right? Being the person expressing something and then receiving something. And communication truly does take two to tango. And so if I'm going to be the expressor, I'm going to communicate something to my partner. Aaron had mentioned earlier assertiveness. So being assertive isn't just speaking your mind anytime and kind of just saying things reactively. Assertiveness is actually being discerning and thoughtful about, okay, if this is really important to me, it's not just a moment where I was upset and I just want to, spout something off. This is actually important to me. And so I'm going to, number one, check that my partner's in a place to talk, right? They didn't just walk inside the house. They didn't just have a really hard day. The kids aren't yelling at us. Okay, you know what? Right now, they seem to be in a good space. Number one, I'm going to express how I feel in a certain area, focusing on I statements. This is a cornerstone of communication, saying things from an I perspective. Now, here's the piece that people forget. They share their feelings, but they don't then follow up asking for what they need or what they want in the relationship, right? Like, what's the ask? So that we don't just leave our partner with, here's my feelings. Follow it up with, so, hey, here's what I'd love more of in the future. Here's what really helps me. Here's what I need more of. That helps your partner. Now, I said a minute ago, the receiving end, the listener. We need to listen to understand our partner, to put down our defenses and our guard. There's nothing to defend against. We don't need to take what they're saying personally, even if they're expressing something from their perspective, how they feel. So we want to listen to understand our partner. And a good way of making sure that you're hearing what they're saying is mirroring. Mirroring, active listening, it's called different things, but basically just reflecting back what you're hearing. So if I heard you correctly, you're saying that you feel blank and that you also need this. Is that right? Now, we're not saying do that like when you're talking about what to make dinner. Like, oh, so if I'm hearing you right, you'd like Italian food? We're not saying do that just for, the day-to-day conversations, but when you're having important conversations, you might even be starting to misunderstand each other. Say, hey, you know what? Let's each take turns being the speaker and the listener, and let's do that mirroring thing so that you make sure you're hearing each other and what the person is really trying to say and not misinterpreting something.
That's really beautiful. And I think, so much of building a strong marriage is really, like you said, conflict resolution and the different skills that you need, whether in repair, whether in communication. What other, tips or skills do you think are important for us to cultivate in a way that would promote understanding and strengthen our relationship, especially after a major disconnection?
Gosh, so many things. I think definitely just really knowing what we call them needle movers, but what are the biggest needle movers for each of you? Because what we find is that couples will start to kind of get distracted by the things that aren't as important. They might even start to express to each other the little things that annoy each other, the bickering and all that. And that starts to just cloud things and distract you too, rather than if you're coming out of a season where you've been more disconnected, or it's just been harder, maybe you have young kids, or it's just been a rougher season in the marriage, talk about the needle movers. What are the 2 or 3 things for each of you that would make the biggest difference to feel a sense of progress in the relationship? Now, if we express those things to each other, we need to remember them. Because it's even worse if we say those things to each other, hey, here are the 2 or 3 things most important to me, and you say them, and then neither of us implement them. It will create this environment of, do we even care? Like, I just said all this, do you even care? So you've got to put the effort behind the things that you share with each other. So remember that, anyone listening, like, do you know the biggest needle movers for your partner? Because you might be communicating it's about the trash, it's about cleaning up the toys. Those things might be important, but are they the needle movers for you two to feel connected and loved in the relationship?
So good. And I love it also when you both shared earlier that, in our relationships and marriages, it goes through different seasons and transitions. And parenthood is one of the huge ones there. It can bring about a lot of joy and also challenges. How do you help couples, or even in your own experiences, how can we navigate the transitions and also maintain a strong connection with each other amidst this very demanding task or role as parents?
Mm.
It'd be probably a bigger conversation around your aim or what you value. So we do have a process that we call rebuilding, and that typically follows like a hard season. And I think just understanding that changes are going to have to be made. You can't keep doing the same things. You can't keep with the same patterns of behavior. And if you're going to recreate a new season, you want to start with, well, what do we really value here? And it's not just what you say, because you could say, oh, we value family and we value love. But if those aren't backed up by the actual motivations for your action, then these are just concepts. These are not what you actually value. So
Yeah.
what you value is actually determined by your daily actions. So again, I could say, well, I really value family, but if I'm always gone working and when I am home, I'm on my phone, well, I said I valued family, but you don't. You value something else, getting your
Comfort.
work done, earning an income, something like that. So you have to have more of a hard conversation about what did this season show us that we do now value, because that's going to be your barometer to move into that new season.
And to your question and what Aaron was just saying, having kids changes what we value, right? Having children reorganizes our values, not completely. And so when we have kids, it definitely, in a sense, we have to realize it's not just about the two of us anymore. But we firmly believe that having kids can strengthen your bond. It doesn't have to strain it. Now, will it add pressure and stress? Sure, but that's different than straining it. Your partnership becomes strained when you two can't adapt. So in psychology, they talk a lot about how we're all going to face different stressors in life. We also all come with a background, right? Our childhood, our upbringing, our attachment. But what determines fulfillment and success in a marriage is how we adapt. So we have kids, and you know what? The way we function now isn't going to be exactly the same as it was before. And realizing that the newborn stage is going to be different than having young kids and then having teens and beyond. So we need to adapt. And that's why talking about the needs, as I was describing a few minutes ago, talking about what we need ongoingly, not having that be like, oh, we talked about needs 6 months ago, we should be good. No, especially when you have kids, needs can be changing daily, weekly, etc. as things go. So making it part of your conversation, what you need in the relationship, and realizing that while you might not have the same amount of time and energy for each other, you can, going back to the other tool, focus on deposits. We have a young child. We run a very full life, a business, the amount of things we do. We don't have a ton of time alone with each other, yet we still make deposits into each other's love account every day.
Aaron and Jocelyn, many of us and many couples also struggle with balancing busy schedules. And it sounds like both of you absolutely do as well, with young kids and, building a high growth business. And also we struggle with balancing busy schedules with, time together, quality time together. And hearing from you, it sounds like, you both still carve out time to have great conversations with each other daily. How do you ensure that is something that you prioritize with each other despite your hectic lives?
Well, it really comes down to it just being an intention of ours, right? So, and it's what we value. So for us, we don't just want our daughter to see a functional marriage. We want her to see a fulfilling marriage. Like for us, being parents has leveled up how important every single day is, in a sense. Like, we know our actions are affecting even her brain, how her brain is being developed, how she's going to see relationships, what patterns she's going to form. Now, I know everyone listening isn't necessarily a parent, so this matters even when we don't have kids, but we just really value connection. And that for us is a priority. It isn't just a clean house. It isn't just getting the to-do list done, which we also love that. Believe us, we love a clean house, but we would not sacrifice connection for a clean house.
Wow.
We would not sacrifice being united and repairing conflict to get something done on our to-do list. Like, that's how important connection, communication, resolving conflicts is it's a top priority. So to go back to your question, yes, we are all challenged by time, whether people have 0 kids, 7 kids, 1 job, 3 jobs. Time is a challenge for everyone. It really comes down to our intentions and what we value and seeing just those little moments of opportunity.
What are some of the seemingly trivial things that we often overlook that actually are huge things when it comes to our relationship and marriages?
I would say this one isn't even necessarily seen as trivial, but it's often missed. And that is when we are attuned to our partner. So for those of you who that's new, being attuned to our partner means we're present and aware of their emotional state, and we respond in a supportive way. So almost like tune, like an instrument, right? Like an instrument's in tune. We can be in sync with each other. We can be in tune. So for example, I observe him. Maybe he seems a little cranky, a little short. I could react to that, even respond or react with something a little bit more dismissing or antagonistic, or I could be attuned and see him as a partner who needs my support in a sense. And so if I'm coming from a place of wanting to be attuned, I might check in on him. You know, hey, how you doing? Everything all right? Not, what's wrong with you? That's not being attuned. So I'm paying attention. Hey, how you doing? Everything all right? Can I help with anything? Anything on your mind you want to share? Right. So I can ask a supportive question, or I could just graze his back. Knowing his personality, what's going to make a difference for him. And all of you listening, you have to think about your partner's personality as well. But to go back to your question, all of those moments where we can either be attuned to them or completely off and not offer a supportive response. All of those moments really add up in a relationship to feel, do you see me? Do you support me? Am I safe to be in different emotional states and be given support?
And, we know that in order to have a great marriage, it takes a lot of consistent daily work. Could you share some of the rituals or habits that both of you practice regularly as a couple that have really positively impacted your marriage?
We've just always been consistent with our mornings. And it's been a little bit different when we didn't have our daughter to when she was at different ages. So, she wakes up at different times. And it's funny, when we first got together, I thought waking up at, 7:30 was pretty early. And then we were going she was like, oh, let's get up an hour earlier. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so early. And we go to the gym. And then, here we are now. It's like we wake up at 5 a.m. every day.
Wow.
So the clock keeps moving back and back. And we just have, I would say, always kept the first hour to hour and a half of our day to be very intentional, whether it's for personal care or the times that we connect, and whatever else is changing, like having a baby or work schedules. It's like if we have to keep on moving that earlier and earlier, we're willing to do that. Because I think it goes into a lot about setting your emotional state early on, because you can wake up and you can just be reactive to cleaning up or emails from work or just any of the external things in your environment. Or you can say, I'm going to take control of my emotional state and I'll meditate or pray or journal or just connect with my partner uninterrupted, set my intention first so that now I can better navigate things as they come.
And just to link to one more thing that we had already covered is the family meeting. So you asked about
Yes.
rituals. We have a weekly family meeting, a quarterly, and a yearly. And we have a guide for that couples can get either separately or it comes with our challenge. But we're huge on having check-ins, intentional times where you're asking each other more than just like, hey, how have things been lately, right? How you feeling? But making sure that you're on the same page about your satisfaction in different areas of the relationship. And especially on a weekly basis, checking in on your love account and where that's at, making sure you're aligned even on the practical things like your schedule and the priorities. So really having the ritual of a weekly family meeting, a quarterly, which has higher level questions about the relationship, and then yearly, which is a good way to just make sure you're on the same page about the progress of your lives and your goals and your values and your priorities. So bigger, higher level conversation. So that's a ritual that we've been doing forever and we highly recommend for couples.
Yeah. And maybe, Jocelyn, could you just give us a glimpse into maybe some of the questions in the weekly sessions that you have with Aaron and some of the bigger ones that have a longer time period?
So as I was saying, right, in the weekly, absolutely checking in on your love account score is huge because we want to be able to course correct quickly, right? So if I ask him, hey, on a scale of 0 to 10, where's your love account at? And he says a 6, it's better that we catch it then than weeks and weeks going by. And now all of a sudden he's at a 2, we feel super disconnected. We're arguing. So being able to ask that and then asking, well, how can I be an even better partner this week? So it's just a way that on a weekly basis, you are course correcting. So that's one of 5 questions that we do on a weekly. On a quarterly, it's really about higher level categories of the relationship. So for example, intimacy is one of the main areas of a relationship. Intimacy means different things to everybody. And how would you know if your partner is satisfied in the area of intimacy if you never checked in? And then yearly, as I had said, is like higher level things. What do we value most in this season? What are things that we want to do to even be better partners together? So there's like a whole framework. It'd be hard to describe if you weren't looking at it.
No, but thank you so much because I think like even the specific language to use that you just shared, is very helpful for a lot of us who are just beginning, and starting out in this journey of like check-ins with our partners.
Yes.
Was there a particularly challenging moment in your marriage for both of you? And maybe could you share with us how you overcame it?
Absolutely. I mean, a couple of years ago, this was shortly after having our daughter. So not only is adjusting to parent life, a whole identity and lifestyle shift, but we actually had really gotten into a couple of different investments that all went south at one time. So we have this newborn baby. These investments go really south and we got into a big fear place. I mean, we were truly afraid. And this was, we had been entrepreneurs and building a business for many years before this, but we're just reaching a point where we needed like a really big win. We needed a sign to continue on. And so it felt like all these hard times were happening. And for a lot of couples, it really could have strained their partnership because we could have turned against each other. I could have blamed him. He could have blamed me. We could have let that fear take over and have us act from our fear-based mind, right? Our survival instincts and turn against each other. But we didn't. We, of course, were open and honest with each other about how we feel and talking through the feelings that we were experiencing. But we really linked arms and we said, how are we going to overcome this? So not only did we overcome it through maintaining things like the family meeting check-in, maintaining our love account, being assertive, repairing all the things that we've covered some big principles here today.
Yeah.
We really focused on those in the hard stage. Whereas what a lot of couples do is during the hard times, they stop all those positive habits. No, we just got to survive. We got to work all these other things out. No, that's when you need to really buckle down and stay focused on the positive habits for your relationship. And so we maintained those habits. We, of course, got through it. And there were truly like miracles that happened after. And our business just started to truly skyrocket. And not only been that we like made it through it, but I feel like from the wisdom and the resilience through those trials, like we are better as individuals, as a couple, and our lives have only gotten better since those challenges.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so encouraging to hear that we all would face trials and tribulations in our relationships and marriages, and it is possible to get over it and to emerge stronger. Aaron and Jocelyn, I have a very specific question around a lot of the times, like what we talked about today, it really needs both parties to commit, whether it is in the rituals or sitting down and talking through openly. And maybe one of the key things that, I hear very often is that, okay, one party is willing, for example, talk through things or maybe even invest in causes or take up the couples challenge and things like that. What's your advice, for us to encourage our partner to be able to do this with us and to do this together?
I mean, I think that first it starts with modeling. So modeling our positive behaviors towards them, right? That's an incredible way to interrupt the patterns between you two, but also have the person kind of wake up and realize, oh, something's different here. Modeling is an incredible way to influence people, whether that's children, peers, our partner. So definitely taking ownership for our actions and doing those things for the better. And then I think second to that, there's power in really sharing how important it is to us. I can say to Aaron, hey, I think this challenge would be good to do. And then he might be like, oh, I don't know, I feel really busy right now. And it doesn't seem that important. But if I say, hey, like, I know we've been so busy lately and I know we've been a little bit off, but our partnership is so important to me. And I found this challenge that I think just could be really kind of fun and give us some ideas. And it would really mean so much to me if we would do this. So sharing why it's important from a positive perspective. I think sometimes people can share their feelings in a negative sense, like things have been horrible and you need to change. So let's do this. Right? That's not usually going to invite people into it. Now, third, so try those first two things I just said, right? Modeling, sharing why it's important. And then third, if there are things that our partner is doing that conflict with our needle movers, they conflict with our non-negotiables, then we can absolutely be more bold and straight up with them. Again, we've tried the first two things. We've tried modeling. We've tried sharing that something is really important to us. Now I can say, hey, there are some things happening within our partnership that are really affecting me in a negative way. And it's something I truly want and need to work on. And so for me, I really am asking that we either do this challenge or we read this guide, or it can be something else that you want to do. But in a sense, I'm in a stage where we have to do something. That's just an example, right? So that's if I really am reaching this point where I need to be more bold and straight up.
And is there any last advice that you have for those of us who are listening and watching this episode? Is there any last advice or encouragement that you have for us in wanting to have stronger and healthier relationships?
I think just implementing the tools we've covered, right? Some big things that we've covered here. I think putting them into action, not just having it be a podcast you listen to, but saying, okay, I want to learn more about the love account, implement that. I want to learn how to repair and implement that. I want to start the family meeting. So putting what we've said into action.
And where can we find more about, you and the work that you're doing, and also consume the resources and causes that you have?
Oh, thanks for asking. And all of them are linked. The URL is meetthefreemans.com/links. And that can also be found on our Instagram. That's a great place to connect with us. We're meet_the_Freemans, Meet the Freemans. And then you'll see our links to all of our resources from our challenges, our guides, our podcast, workshops, everything in there.
Thank you so much again, Aaron and Jocelyn. I just want to really affirm you and this amazing gift that both of you have in sharing and in taking so much effort and time, and also all the content that you're producing. They are far-reaching and they have really impacted so many of us, and will continue to impact so many of us. And I hope that, you continue to do what you do, and also because I really think it makes a difference in helping building stronger marriages.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.